Kyle stepped out of the courthouse and took a deep breath. Ah, finally. He was free. His now ex-wife, Ashley, clicked over to the man waiting for her and gave him a dramatic, demonstrative kiss, waving the divorce decree triumphantly. Kyle smirked. Ashley always had to make a spectacle of everything. Ashley shot a victorious look back at Kyle and, hooking her arm through her new bows, began to walk away from the building. Kyle smirked again and looked around, contemplating how to celebrate his new single status. His eyes were drawn to a woman exiting the same courthouse doors. It was clear she was deeply upset and on the verge of tears. She descended the steps and then noticed the departing couple. Silent tears streamed down her face. Kyle, who had already started toward his car, stopped. Cursing himself for getting involved in someone else's business, he walked toward the girl. "Are you all right? Can I help you?" No, it's fine," the woman choked out, but Kyle was already determined to assist her. "My name is Kyle. What's yours?" The girl remained silent. "Did you get divorced today?" Silence. "Is that your husband walking away over there?" Kyle motioned toward the couple. Still no sound. "He's with my ex-wife," Kyle finished. The woman's huge eyes, dark blue from tears and distress, snapped up to meet his. He felt as if he was beginning to drown in them. Natalie, she quickly corrected. "And you got divorced today too?" "Yep," Kyle simply replied. "So, how is it?" "How is what?" "How do you feel?" "Fine." Kyle didn't understand what she was getting at. "Why?" "Well, things had been heading this way for a long time. We both got what we wanted." "You didn't love her?" Kyle wanted to reply that such questions were inappropriate for strangers, but her look stopped him. He read so much pain and hope in her eyes that someone would share her grief. "No, I don't love her anymore." And Natalie's tears started afresh. "You know what?" Kyle suggested, surprising himself. "Let's go celebrate our divorces somewhere together." "Celebrate?" Nat stared at him in astonishment. "Exactly. We're friends in misfortune, so to speak. Why shouldn't we team up?" "But you said you didn't love your wife." "I don't love her now, but I did once. We can share our experiences. I'll share the past ones, you share the current ones. They say it's easier to bare your soul to a stranger." Natalie looked at him for a long moment and then shrugged. "Let's do it." "Perfect! I know a decent bar nearby. Shall we?" Kyle cheerfully bent his arm at the elbow, offering it to her. "So, your husband and my wife left us for each other?" Kyle looked intently at his new acquaintance. "I guess so," Natalie mused, turning a shot glass of liquor in her hands. Then she brightened and leaned toward Kyle. "They're such jerks, right?" "Couldn't agree more," Kyle nodded. "I started looking for my replacement the minute we had a rough patch. And I loved him so much. I was ready to do anything for him. And he just trampled all over my feelings. He didn't even try to hide the fact that he was seeing another woman. Like I was nobody. You know, Kyle, when I told him I was divorcing him, he was genuinely surprised. He said a wimp like me should just sit down and shut up, because if we divorced, I'd never be wanted by anyone else. But I decided, so what? Even if I'm alone forever, at least I won't constantly be humiliated by his cheating and indifference." "That's exactly right." Kyle looked at her admiringly, also tipsy. "Good for you. You did the right thing. And as for being alone, your ex is an idiot. You're totally gorgeous and you have a killer body. You'll be beating guys off with a stick. Yeah, right, Natalie sadly nodded. Do you think I haven't looked in a mirror? But thank you, anyway. No, seriously. Kyle wanted to prove his point. You're just too hard on yourself. Or you believe your ex so much that you can't see how other men look at you. Kyle, stop. I know you're trying to comfort me, but don't. I'm not trying to comfort you. Why would I need to do that? Kyle was annoyed. And suddenly, a completely insane idea struck him. Hey, let's get married. Married? What do you mean? Nat tried to focus her gaze on him. Exactly. Let them know that we didn't miss a beat and it took us nothing to find replacements. We can rub it in their faces. But don't worry. It'll be a fake marriage, a faux marriage. We just pretend everything is great, but the moment either of us finds the right person, we get divorced, no questions asked. Deal? Deal, Natalie replied, still not entirely grasping what she was agreeing to.
The next day, when Kyle showed up at her door to drive her to the clerk's office, Natalie couldn't believe her eyes. That morning, recalling the conversation, she had assumed it was just drunken babble. But there he was, standing on her doorstep, asking why she wasn't ready. They quietly signed the papers, and Natalie moved into her new husband's apartment. Contrary to her expectations, Kyle was a calm and polite young man. He generously gave her his bedroom, moving into the living room. He always knocked when he wanted to enter her room. He helped with chores and even gave her money for household expenses. Natalie also did her part. Like a real wife, she tidied and made the apartment cozy, trying to cook something delicious every day, making sure his clothes were clean and ironed, and avoiding prying questions. From the outside, their marriage seemed ideal. When with friends, they played the part of a deeply in love couple, much to the annoyance of their exes who, ironically, sometimes found themselves in the same social circles. What was your husband missing? The question caught Natalie off guard. They were sitting together watching TV. Kyle was watching a sports channel and Nat was knitting. In different circumstances, I'd be carrying you around. Well, what's stopping you now? She teased, trying to lighten the mood. You know, what is stopping me? Kyle suddenly jumped up, swept Nat into his arms, and spun her around the room. Nat burst into delighted laughter. Kyle, stop! I'm getting dizzy, she cried out, still laughing. Kyle immediately set her down. Taking a step toward the sofa, Nat suddenly swayed and was forced to grab onto him. A moment later, she was in his embrace, and his lips covered hers hungrily. She didn't resist. It had been too long since anyone had kissed her, too long since she had felt loved and desired. But when Kyle's hand slipped under her shirt, she pulled away. Kyle, I understand, but maybe we shouldn't use each other for this? It felt like an eternity before she heard his reply. Maybe you're right, but Nat. Don't get the wrong idea. I really, genuinely like you. And if things ever change, believe me, I deeply respect you and I would never allow myself to use you. Without a word, Nat hurried to her room.
For an entire week, she tried not to look at Kyle, though he behaved as usual, as if the kiss had never happened. But the memory of that kiss tormented Natalie every evening. For the first time in her life, she stopped thinking about her ex-husband. She was no longer interested in how he was getting along with his new wife. She no longer imagined him crawling back to her on his knees, begging her to return. All of Natalie's thoughts revolved around Kyle. Hey, Nat, want to catch a movie? The question came on a Saturday afternoon as Natalie was doing the dishes after lunch. When? Today. But I planned to make meatballs for dinner. I already took the meat out. Your meatballs can wait, Kyle smiled. They can't wait, or we won't have anything for dinner. Nat, why are you so boring? Your husband is inviting you to a movie and you're thinking about meatballs. Surely we can find something else to eat? Fine, Natalie smiled back. I'll go get dressed. The film was exceptionally romantic. Couples around them were kissing without shame. Natalie felt awkward watching them, yet she was tormented by envy. How wonderful it would be if Kyle suddenly decided to kiss her, too. As if reading her mind, Kyle suddenly put his arm around her, turned her face toward him, and kissed her. After the movie, Kyle took her to a restaurant where they enjoyed a leisurely dinner, danced, and talked about random topics. All evening, her husband didn't take his eyes off her, eyes filled with tenderness. Under his gaze, Natalie shyly dropped her eyes, but inside, she trembled with anticipation. In the taxi, Kyle kissed her again. They rode the whole way, glued to each other. At home, they continued kissing. Breaking away from her lips, Kyle looked at her eyes, a question in his gaze. She understood his unspoken query and nodded. The next instant, he swept her into his arms and carried her to the bedroom. 6 months passed. Natalie lived a fairy tale, reveling in her husband's care and passion. At work, she eagerly awaited to see him, and at home, she tried not to leave his side. Kyle reciprocated her feelings. Not a day went by without him bringing her flowers, chocolates, or a pleasant little trinket. Their 1-year anniversary was approaching. Natalie suddenly noticed that Kyle seemed preoccupied and thoughtful more often. Is this it, she feared? Has he found someone else? Someone who will truly become the right partner? Adding to Natalie's worries was morning sickness. Anxiously, she bought a test. Sure enough, she was pregnant. What should she do? If she told Kyle about the pregnancy, he, being an honorable man, would stay with her, but he would forever lose the hope of a life with a woman he truly loved. And Natalie desperately didn't want Kyle to suffer. Deciding to keep quiet for now, she began preparing for their anniversary.
Kyle arrived with a massive bouquet of roses. Accepting the flowers, Natalie led him to the living room, where the table was set for a celebratory dinner. After drinking a glass of wine, Kyle looked into Natalie's eyes and took her hands. Here it comes, Natalie thought, bracing herself to summon the courage to listen to the bitter truth. Not, I've thought a lot about our relationship. I know we had a very unconventional start, but regardless, lately our relationship has settled into a completely different track than the beginning. And I'll be honest, I love it. I'll understand if you don't agree with me, but I have to say it. I've fallen in love with you. You are exactly the woman I want to spend the rest of my life with. Kyle then got out from behind the table and dropped to one knee in front of Natalie. In his hands was a box with an exquisite ring inside. Nat, will you marry me? For real this time. Tears welled up in Natalie's eyes. Of course, if only you knew how much I wanted this. They hugged and kissed for a long time. But how can I marry you when we're already married? Natalie suddenly realized. We'll go on a wedding trip, Kyle answered cheerfully. We never had a honeymoon, and then we can start working on making babies right away. The man was beaming, delighted with his plans. Well, we don't need to start just yet, Natalie smiled back, mysteriously. What? Is that true? Kyle stared wide-eyed at his wife. She simply dropped her gaze.